David and Goliath, that's what it feels a lot of time, I think, in a lot of our businesses, right? So I know I go compete against these huge companies, billion-dollar companies, brand name recognition, and who we are. We're Diesel Laptops trying to grow our thing. Where I'm going with that is this is how change happens, right? I think we're creating some positive impact. We're changing some things. The interview you're about to listen to or watch is about right to repair. And what it really starts with isn't Kevin who you're going to meet. It isn't me. It's you. So that's where change starts. And it's oftentimes very difficult to have something that we know is right. We know it'll better our lives. We know a lot of good will come out of it. But you have people with some pretty deep pockets that are fighting against it for their best interests, which are not the interest of the general population. And that's really what right to repair comes down to a lot of times. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. We're mainly going to talk about farm tractors and agriculture, but it really applies to commercial truck, automotive, phones, appliances in your house, all these things. And it goes beyond just giving you, the consumer, the right. It goes to the positives that come out with it as well. Just imagine if this phone that we have could actually work for more than a couple of years. We could keep using it and repairing it or change the battery on it, right? It's amazing how much that impact those things have, these small changes have on everyone's lives. So enjoy the episode. I really encourage you to learn more. Reach out to Kevin. He's going to talk about repair.org. He's going to talk about his organization. A lot of people fighting for this. They need all the help and support they can get. Get involved. If anything, get involved. All right? Enjoy the episode. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the DL. I am your host, Tyler Robertson, the CEO and founder of Diesel Laptops. And today we're going to talk about all kinds of things. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation that we have going on here. And it's probably with an association you never heard of. Maybe you have. I hadn't heard of them. But as I dug in, I'm like, man, their interests really line up with a lot of my interests and a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish here in our world. So I thought it'd be great to bring him on for an episode. So I'd like to welcome on Kevin. Kevin, welcome to the show. He's with PIRG. And I'd love for you to who is PIRG? Like, people probably never even heard of it, right? So let's just start there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Tyler. So my name's Kevin O'Reilly. I'm the Right to Repair Campaign Director with US PIRG, or the Public Interest Research Group. And PIRG, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan public interest advocacy organization. And, what that means in simple terms is that we like to look at ourselves as your advocate for the public interest. So at every level of government, whether that is municipal, whether that's the state legislature, or in DC and in Congress, we are working to advance issues surrounding things like consumer protection, environmental protection, public health, good governance, transparency, those kind of things, to really stand up to many of the powerful interests that can influence the laws that affect our lives. We want to make sure that the public interest has an advocate in there. So we try to do that work as best as we can.
So anytime people use the words nonprofit, and, there's obviously political stuff that happens here, right, with what you're doing with Right to Repair. Everyone kind of like traces it back to the money. Okay, like, well, who's paying for this? So if you could kind of clear the air there so people have an understanding of who you're really fighting for and the kind of the funding side of this thing.
Totally. Well, if we're going to be the advocate for the public interest, that means that we can't feel like we have any ties or needs to oppress or impress or appease any sort of corporation. So we don't take any sort of corporate money. The vast majority of our funding comes from small donors who maybe donate $25 to $75. And we like that because it allows us to be truly independent, to make decisions and carry out actions that are truly going to be best for the public interest rather than, best for whoever is signing our checks. So we look at ourselves as responsible to the people who are, finding a way to give that little bit of money maybe every month to support our work.
All right. So Right to Repair, I've had some people on here that are, they're neck deep in it, right? Like they're out there fighting the legal battlefronts and the Massachusetts thing and all these things. And I think right to repair is a big thing, right? Because we can sit here and talk about commercial truck repair, automotive repair, off-highway repair, phones, phones and Apple's a lightning rod. We just saw the European Union say, hey, everyone's got to, at least you have a USB-C charger, no more lightning connectors for you, Apple. People are trying to make the consumer's life easier. So what are you doing, or what industry or segment, I guess, are you focused in on the right to repair side of this?
Yeah. So at PIRG, we really focus, I think, across 3 or 4 main industries, right? So we're looking at consumer technology, like you talked about, cell phones, laptops, all of these things that might be glued together rather than using fasteners. They do things that make it more difficult for us to take apart our phones, to replace the battery, to do those kind of things. And that means we've got, right, this mountain of e-waste that we're producing. In the United States, we actually throw away 636,000 cell phones every single day. So that's a big impact on the environment, right? In addition to that, we focus a lot of our work is working with farmers and trying to make sure that we can pass laws so that they can fix their tractors, their combines, their sprayers, everything that they use across the farm. Because similar to, the on-highway equipment that you deal with, right, there is software and there's software tools required to make repairs these days. So farmers who have for generations been finding a way to get the job done, regardless of when their tractor breaks down, are now sitting with a ton of metal that's basically a paperweight in the field because they don't have access to the right tools. So we do that work. And then there's also other industries as well. There's home appliances. I don't know if you've seen, there actually was a Samsung refrigerator that you had to get a special software approval just to change the water filter. There are big problems in the medical device industry as well, everything from ventilators to dialysis machines to CT scans. Unfortunately, many of these same kind of restrictive practices are carried out by manufacturers so that they can continue to, monopolize the repair market. They can rely on that revenue stream to come through. And in the case of some of our consumer devices, get you to buy new devices faster.
Yeah, and I think you hit a really good point there when going back to the cell phone thing for a second, right? Like over 600,000 phones a day. If people realize how much like mining and transportation and effort it takes to make one cell phone that ends up getting thrown away 2 or 3 years later. I mean, it's hard to just even replace a battery on a cell phone, right? Like, oh, buy the new model. Like, and I get it. And I again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a huge fan of the EPA, but on the other hand, my company really exists because of the EPA. So I got to give them a lot of credit, and I want a greener earth, and I want my kids to be able to breathe, 40, 50, 60 years from now, and all these things. So they're more related, I think, than a lot of people realize out there. It's not just, we want the right to choose what to work on, but we also understand there's a huge environmental impact. It was like kind of mind blowing. One of the stats I got off one of the reports in there, it was something around, vehicle emissions in the United States, right? It's like it's like the biggest pollutant in the United States. It's almost, and another stat that blew my mind, it was actually like 4% of the entire global emissions are coming from the U.S. transportation industry. So as much as we like to think, hey, we're the clean guys over here and all these laws are oppressing us, we're still pretty bad at it. And we're a big country, and we're causing some problems out there. But going back to the right to repair on the ag side, is this just John Deere? Is this everybody? Like, what are you guys seeing? And I know John Deere's the lightning rod. I'm just kind of curious if you're seeing other companies get involved in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I've talked with dozens and dozens of farmers across the country. And unfortunately, the fact is that whether your machine is, green, orange, red, there are still these kind of restrictions that exist for fixing your own equipment. So the fact of the matter is more likely than not, if it's got software in it, you're not going to be able to make every single repair yourself. You're going to have to turn to the dealer in many cases. And so I think John Deere, right, gets a lot of the attention because in many cases they're the most technologically advanced. They've got more sensors in their combine than competitors. They've got some kind of further down the road advancements, and as a result often have further down the road technological restrictions on fixing your stuff. But also they're huge, right? I mean, they control 53% of the large tractor market in the United States. So they are the big dog. They are kind of the cultural big dog as well in rural America. So, a lot has come against them, but unfortunately, the fact of the matter is it's not like farmers could just go to a Case IH dealership, buy a new machine, and all of a sudden be able to fix their tractor. And that's why legislative change is so important, right? The fact of the matter is, I think between CNH Industrial, John Deere, and AGCO, they control something like 90% of the agricultural equipment market in the United States. And each of them have their own kind of repair restrictions, very similar to, each of their competitors. But you can't just go buy a different machine and all of a sudden be able to fix it. We need this legislative change so that the parts, the tools, the information, the software tools are available to farmers, to independent mechanics on fair and reasonable terms, so that repair choices actually exist, so that farmers can get the repair relief that they need, that they're asking for, and that they're raising the flag about.
So at PIRG, how are you guys helping, right? Is it awareness? Is it helping on the political battlefront? Like where do you guys do? Like what is it as a grassroots thing? Like how are you helping move that cause?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to do everything we can to win this progress, to make the change. And so, at the beginning of the day, we look and we see what's the quickest way to do it. We often will first go to the manufacturer or go to our target to ask them, hey, this is the right thing to do. Will you do it? In the event that they don't, then we kick up the advocacy machine, right? So a couple of the things you mentioned are kind of key to our approach. So for one, we're going to do the research. We're going to find out the ways that this problem is affecting people. So, earlier this year, I released a report looking at how this sweeping trend of dealership consolidation is making the problems of repair restrictions even worse for farmers. I actually found that there's essentially one John Deere dealership chain for every for every 12,000 American farms, and every 5.3 million acres of American farmland. So you don't have choices even within that monopoly. It's like a monopoly inside of a monopoly, essentially. So we do that kind of research to get the facts out there. We go and do grassroots work, right? We go to the people who are affected, make sure that their stories are shared with decision makers, with the media, because we want to win, the battle in the court of public opinion and help people understand the impacts that these kind of problems have on not only farmers' lives, but their lives, what it means for their ability to, get affordable groceries in the grocery aisle. And then we do go and we work to influence lawmakers at every level, right? So we're going to be in the building, in your state house, in DC, knocking on folks' doors, recruiting champions to introduce legislation, and then doing everything we can to bring the public in, right? Bringing that grassroots presence into the halls of power to make sure that our decision makers know that this is something that people want. And in the case of right to repair, right, this is absolutely something that people want. I don't know if you've seen some of the polling, but something like 76% of Americans support right to repair, and majorities of Republicans, independents, and Democrats all support this idea. In many cases, the people who don't support it just don't know about it. And once they learn about it, it's something that they support. So I think, getting the word out is one of the most important things, but then taking and building momentum and grassroots support is key to actually getting the job done at the end of the day.
Well, if there's one thing I learned about our political system is if the right and the left can find a common enemy, they are hell bent to work together to go after that, right? So, like I know, and just to explain to the audience here, because you might not follow right to repair since in the previous episodes. John Deere is definitely the lightning rod with this. They've basically taken this stance several years ago. The Millennium Digital Copyright Act, I think, is where it all started, really. And they basically said, look, you bought my tractor, but you don't own the rights to any of the software on the tractor. You're basically renting that software. We still own the software. So therefore, you can't do any of these things to it because it's our software, our intellectual property. And they've made some crazy acquisitions saying, well, if we give you access, you're going to pirate the latest, Britney Spears song or whatever. It's just these ridiculous arguments that they make, and probably show my age there by using a Britney Spears reference for music. But that is the arguments they're making. And you're absolutely right. Everything I'm hearing, Kevin, it's the fact that the general public wants this, right? So. And I know there's a lot of people say right to repair. They think Massachusetts, the automotive thing and everything. But the farmers, like the state level, Have the states not stepped in? I mean, I got to imagine like Nebraska, like, right? They got to be just like beating the door down to their lawmakers. Like, this is BS. Do something at the state level. It's hard to get a federal level to do anything at all. A lot of these things start at the state level. So have you seen lawsuits? Have you seen things starting to happen kind of at the state level that's starting to really drive change and even keep pushing this even harder?
Yeah, well, so we have seen level in the courts. We've seen things at the state level. We've even seen, some progress at the federal level as well. And I think, the important thing to note is that this is happening because there are farmers who are fed up. There are independent mechanics who are fed up, who are speaking out, telling kind of their story about how this problem is happening. And then, it just makes sense, right? Farmers should be able to fix their stuff. They should have repair choices. And so people naturally agree with that. And that's what's kind of built this momentum. But there's a number of different things, right? So for one, there have been so far in the courts 17 different class action lawsuits brought against John Deere for their repair restrictions, right? And basically what the farmers are arguing there is that this is causing them financial harm, whether it's paying for additional higher prices for the dealership mechanics labor because there's no competition. They have to go there so they can essentially charge what they want. Also, downtime, right? So I've spoken to farmers who have faced as much as 6 weeks or 32 days of downtime because there was a problem in this case with one farmer from Missouri. His fertilizer spreader had a problem with the hydraulic issue, but unfortunately, Jared, the farmer, didn't know that. He just got an error code. It shut down his tractor. He had to haul it in, load it on a truck, haul it into the dealer. It sat there full of fertilizer for 32 days before the problem was finally fixed. Found out it was just a problem with one of the valves. It was a repair he thinks he could have done in a matter of a day or two, rather than waiting that long, right? And he estimates that he loses somewhere like $10,000 to $15,000 every day he doesn't get seed in the ground. And that happened during planting season, right? So they're saying between the higher labor rates and the downtime that is affecting our crop or, causing us to lose our crop, you're costing us millions of dollars. And so those cases have all been consolidated. Now they're going to be heard in one of the district courts in Illinois. But there's also been, 40 different states who have taken up some sort of right to repair legislation. This past year, I think there were 22 overall and something like 12 considered included agricultural equipment. So one of the big places that we saw a lot of progress was in Nebraska, like you mentioned, thanks to Senator Tom Brandt, who was the champion on that bill, who did a lot of good work moving the issue forward, bringing farmers into the legislative process and decision-making process. And that bill made it all the way to the floor. If it would have passed out of the Nebraska Senate, it would have went to the governor's desk for signature to become law. But unfortunately, it was filibustered at the last minute and was unable to move on. So, still some work to do, and, politics can be tough. But the last thing I want to mention too, right, are a couple other things and a couple other angles that we're pursuing to try and get this done for farmers is Senator John Tester from Montana has introduced the Agricultural Right to Repair Act. He is a farmer himself. When he goes home on the weekends, he is out, working on his tractor, doing the work himself. So he knows as well as anybody what farmers are facing out there. And he's been a really great champion, working to try and make sure to get bipartisan support. And then the last thing too, right, is in many cases you can do things through the courts or through legislative bodies, but we've also, along with National Farmers Union, Farm Action, Repair.org, so a mixture of farm groups and pro-repair groups, we filed a complaint with the FTC, essentially alleging that John Deere has monopolized the repair process and talking about all of the work that they've done there. So, the Federal Trade Commission is our competition authority, and they can come in and take action and decide that this is an unfair and deceptive practice, that this is a tying arrangement where you have to get drawn in, you have to keep paying whoever you bought your thing from on a consistent basis in order to keep using that device. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire, and we feel like, to mix metaphors here, the iron is hot, so we need to strike. And so we're really excited about this coming year of 2023 and think it'll be the year that we will finally, win some sort of progress towards getting farmers their right to repair.
Yeah, I feel like, I have like relatives sending me right to repair stuff about John Deere, right? like that wasn't happening 2 or 3 years ago. Like you can tell it's more mainstream media. People understand what that means now when you say right to repair. It's becoming more of a public consciousness thing, I believe, at this point, because people get it. And probably starts with the phones, right? And all these other things that people are upset about, like, what am I going to buy a new phone? Well, what do you think about the guy that's got to buy a new $500,000 tractor because he can't get the part? They don't make the parts anymore.
Sorry, they're taking out mortgages on this equipment, and they're being told, "Oh, you're not, smart enough to figure out how to fix this advanced equipment." There was a public hearing in North Carolina last week. They're investigating the issue, and one of the chairs, the senator, said, "If you're smart enough to write a $500,000 check, I think you're smart enough to fix your own tractor." And I couldn't agree more with that.
No, I 100% agree. And I think, we're talking right to repair in this regard with farmers and agriculture. I can tell the audience the story that just happened this last year, and it had to do with emission systems on trucks. There's a critical component on there that controls the DEF that is injected into the emission system to reduce the emissions, right? Well, that particular component, because of supply chain shortages, couldn't be manufactured or supplied. Well, guess what if your truck fails on your truck? Your emission system stops and your truck's derated and you can't use your truck. So all of a sudden, several manufacturers found themselves in situations with tens and tens of thousands of customers without the component, and their truck was unusable. And they had to go get approval from the EPA to essentially do like a factory emission delete to get through the situation. And you look back at it, and the whole problem is to begin with, guys, like you put all this intellectual property and all these things on it and filed all these patents. Aftermarket can't even make it if they wanted to. like you put yourself in this bad situation. And I know people need to, don't get me wrong, businesses need to have a profit. I need to have a profit to stay in business and keep growing my business. We all get that. But sometimes that line just gets really crossed. So it's great to see, what PIRG's doing and other companies to try to help that cause. And I want to go back to like Nebraska or Illinois, right? A lot of farming, a lot of lawsuits and everything going on there, consolidated. And I made the comment earlier, like, well, farmers got to be like beating down the doors, essentially. These lawmakers like do this. But I got to imagine John Deere, AGCO, all these other companies, they're throwing money at these senators for their campaigns and doing their side of it too. How are you feeling about 2023? Do you think things are going to start happening? Is the momentum still going in the right direction?
I mean, to start, Tyler, you're absolutely right that manufacturers have a ton of money to throw at this, and they're able to just flood state houses with lobbyists, right? That was one joke that an ally of mine in Nebraska made was, essentially next year, if they bring this up again, they're going to have to expand the Capitol Rotunda so that they can fit all the John Deere lobbyists in there. But despite, going up against these just really titans of industry, right? Whether it's in the agricultural field of with John Deere and AGCO and CNH, or consumer devices, Apple, Amazon, Google, right? These are massive, massive companies with lots of resources to pour into this. At the end of the day, though, it's the outrage that comes from real people who are dealing with this problem. And it's a common sense problem with a common sense solution of just let people fix their stuff. So what we're excited about, right, to the point you were saying, you're getting right to repair articles sent to you. I think it's becoming more aware of kind of maybe not necessarily a kitchen table issue, but it's something that people understand, something that people are getting, and more people are talking out. In the case of farmers, right, many of them fear retaliation from their local dealership. They're afraid that if they go on the record, that if they talk to the press, that their dealership will stop selling them parts. And I heard from one who literally had to go cross state lines, go to another dealership and use a fake name in order to buy the tractor, right? So it's scary for them to do this, but I think there's a lot of strength in numbers, and more people are coming forward. They're sharing their story. They're being courageous in that and fighting for what's right. And I think we're now getting to the point where the combination of the public awareness, as well as more and more people coming forward and too many stories coming forward for, the manufacturers to continue to spread their, let's say disingenuous, to be kind, their disingenuous arguments of why they need to restrict repair. I think the truth's going to come through, and it's ultimately going to win the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take another dig at John Deere. I don't mind. They already send me some attorney love letters once in a while.
Yeah,
but so they finally came out and said, "Hey, we're going to make." Okay, so just I'll back up a step for the audience here. To hook up to a John Deere tractor, typically you need really three things. You need a computer, you need the data link to go between the truck and the laptop, and you need the John Deere software. John Deere refuses to sell the software. So there's bootleg pirated copies of it all over out there, but you still need to buy their $2,500 device, which is absolutely insane, in order to do these things. But John Deere finally came out and said, "Oh, we're going to make John Deere." They called it a different name. So John Deere Service Advisor. I think they call it like John Deere Service Advisor Customer or something. So they launched this thing, and all it is like a code reader. It's like this watered down version that really doesn't do anything. But of course, on the website and the marketing and the press releases, it's like, "Oh, the software's now available to anybody that wants it." Blah blah blah. But I guarantee you, and we've tried this. I've called a couple of John Deere dealers, like, "Hey, I want to buy Service Advisor." Like, "Oh, you can't buy that." I'm like, "Well, I saw the press release. It says I could, and I know other news organizations done the same thing." So it's really frustrating just to be constantly fighting these big behemoths. And I get it; they're a big organization. They got a lot of dealers, and they gotta get on the same page. But man, it's a tough battle out there.
It is a tough battle. And I partnered with Vice back in 2021 trying to buy this diagnostic software before they made that announcement, even though they had a commitment to do it by the beginning of 2021, and they failed to meet that their own self-imposed deadline. But it's tough out there. And the fact of the matter is that the tools that are provided, Customer Service Advisor, doesn't allow you to go in and install the payload file to authorize the repair at the end of the process. You don't get access to other tools in the Deere world like Dealer Technician Assistance Center or DTAC, where you have troubleshooting instructions and error logs and known product defaults, right, that have come forward since the tractors came off the line. You don't have access to all sorts of information you need to fix your stuff. And that's why we need to pass a law in order to get this done. But, at the end of the day, again, we've got the facts on our side. We've got the people on our side. We need to keep bringing people in so that we've got a bigger team to go up against these, big corporate lobbyists that they can afford. But when you've got the facts, when you've got the people, I think that can, beat any lobbying budget at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely gonna happen. I already see what's happening in Massachusetts with the automotive, which tied in HD. I know off highway is not included in that. Another great example. If people think this is hard, like PayPal. Just this week, PayPal's like, "Hey, $2,500 fine for misinformation," right? Is what they said. And then all of a sudden, the internet went bonkers, and they lost like $6 billion in valuation overnight and reverse course. So public outcry goes a lot further than people think. And I think this is the point where I'd like to say, hey, if people want to get involved, Kevin, where are they going? How do they get involved? How do they help? Can you throw some websites or some information out there?
Yeah, so there's a few places. I mean, first of all, you can find me and get in touch with me. I'm on Twitter at Kevin_O'Reilly7. And then there's a few other places. You can go to our website. You can go to PIRG.org and look up our Right to Repair campaign. We've got a number of petitions that you can sign that will get you involved. The other place to go is to repair.org, which is they are another nonprofit. They are kind of the digital right to repair coalition that we meet under, and a huge ally of ours and partner in ours in this campaign. If you go to yourstate.repair.org, there's a particular petition that you can sign that will then send to your state legislators. Even if you want to, in many cases, a call is better than a letter. So we've got a whole online system where you put in your number and it'll connect you with your legislator's office. So, for example, if you live in Oklahoma, it will be oklahoma.repair.org. Whatever state is your state is a good place to go find that.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate coming on here, being able to talk through this with us. It's an important subject. Glad I met you. Glad to learn about your organization, and I'm glad we have people out there like you and your team members out there fighting for what we all want. Right? I know a lot of times the American people or people just don't say it, but we know there's people that are fighting for things that are important. So, Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to call this one a wrap for everybody on here. And remember, it's not just diagnostics, it's diagnostics done right. And you got to also have repair, right to repair. It's an important piece of the puzzle, no matter what you have, from that thing in your pocket to that $500,000 tractor that's putting food on your table. These are all important things to every single American that's listening to this video, and Canadian, anybody in that regard. So thank you for watching, listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Get in touch with Kevin. Do some donations. Love what you guys are doing. Thank you for watching, listening, everybody.